All right, I will call to order the meeting of the January 12th Minnehaha Creek Watershed District Board of Managers. All managers are present with the exception of Manager Sherry White, who's our president. The two managers are not with us, but on a hybrid video format. And as managers Hejmati and Manager Maxwell. So everyone is accounted for. If there are any...
Mr. President?
Yes.
This is Louis. Could I say a word about our meeting format?
Go ahead.
My understanding is that Manager Maxwell is under the meeting notice, meeting by interactive technology at the designated address. Manager Hejmati is not at a publicly accessible location, and my understanding is that he's simply monitoring the meeting but will not speak or participate in the meeting or vote. I want to make sure that's everyone else's understanding.
Thank you. That was not my understanding, so I appreciate that. So Manager Hejmati is observing. Thank you. Does that count as not present then? Correct?
Correct.
Okay.
But we'll make minutes in the note of his form of participation or observation in the minutes.
All right. Thank you. Thanks. At this time, if anybody is wishing to address the Board of Managers on an item not on the agenda or the consent agenda, they can come forward now. Seeing none, we will continue on with the approval of the agenda. Do I have a motion to approve the agenda? Move approval. Motion by Miller. Second by Manager Maxwell. All in favor? Aye. 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 Opposed? Motion carries.
Mr. President,
Yes.
all of the votes this evening, because of our remote format, need to be by roll call.
Okay, this will take a little longer then, all right. Do we want to redo that one then? Manager Miller?
Sure.
Aye. Manager Sando?
Aye.
Manager Loftus?
Aye.
Manager Olson says aye. Manager Maxwell?
Aye.
It has been approved. Information items in correspondence. We have a new staff introduction and we have a staff acknowledgement for tonight. So I will ask Mr. Whisker to come forward.
We're going to strike number 4.2 because we don't want her to leave.
Grab a seat, Josh. Sure, Olson Managers, my pleasure tonight to introduce you to our new project maintenance and land manager, Josh Wolf. He's joining us from Salt Lake County, now Minneapolis. And I'm not going to say any more because I promised you I wouldn't, and I don't need to read your introduction for you. But we're very happy to have Josh here. He's been here about 2 or 3 weeks. He's settling in finally with Tiffany as they build cohesive team to drive PMLM forward. And I'm going to turn it over to you, Josh, and have you say a few words about your personal professional background and what drew you to Minnehaha Creek Watershed District.
Yeah, so I'm Josh Wolf. I'm from New Glarus, Wisconsin, and I studied at UW-Madison in the same program that Abby did. We're water resource management grads. I worked at Salt Lake County Environmental Health Department for the last 4.5 years in their drinking water program. And I moved back to the Midwest. My family still lives in Wisconsin, so I'm excited to be closer to them, and I'm excited to be here in the district and kind of work to bring the program forward in a way we can use kind of data management focused thinking to hone in our efficiencies as we look to our maintenance projects going forward in the future. So it's a pleasure to meet you all, and I'm happy to be here with the district.
Go Badgers.
Welcome.
Do you have any questions for me?
Yeah, do you know you have to abstain from supporting Green Bay?
That's going to be a tough one. It's in the veins when you grow up in Wisconsin, you know, you can't get it out.
from New Glarus, it's more than blood in those veins.
That's true.
Welcome.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Josh.
Now we're going to ask Anna Brown to come forward.
Thank you, Manager Olson, managers. I told James I'd go first, but I'm already feeling a little weepy, so bear with me.
It's okay, we are too.
Yeah. Same thing.
So as the board is aware, I'll be leaving MCWD. I told James and Mike and Becky and Tiffany at my interview in 2015 that this was my dream job, and that's still true today. My husband and I have just decided to pursue another one of our dreams and move back to Portland, Oregon with our family. So I'll be putting my project management skills to good use, orchestrating a move with 2 dogs, 2 little kids, household full of stuff, back to the Pacific Northwest. So I just wanted to take a few minutes to, I don't know, speak to my time here and what it's meant to me. And it's really difficult to put into words everything that this organization has meant to me. I would say it's been my most rewarding professional experience, but really it's my only professional experience.
You can do that.
It's true then.
But I think that's a testament. This organization took a risk on me 7.5 years ago, hiring me fresh out of grad school. And I've been able to do more in 7 years than I sort of ever imagined possible. Really, truly fulfilling some of my dreams and some work that I just, I'm so proud of. So, and just on a personal level, I've grown up so much in those 7 years. So much has happened to me personally, and the district has really been part of that story. Some of my happiest times, some of my most difficult times. I've really gotten through with the help and support of people at this organization. So I'd like to thank the board first for really always pushing us higher and pushing us to think bigger. The staff-board relationship here is really, truly unique, and I really applaud you for the way that you empower staff to be creative, to think outside of the box, and to just relentlessly pursue our goals. I want to thank James for his creativity, energy, and drive. James always carries the big vision and really trusts his staff to figure out how to execute it. And I've just learned so much from James. I've learned so much about communication, how to build relationships, leverage relationships, how to really think strategically and put your thoughts into action. And for that, I'll be forever grateful. I'd like to thank Mike and Absentia for teaching me so much. I mean, he really helped me feel confident in my ability to manage projects and to execute these really big ideas. He's always playing the red team, and he's really taught me to never take anything for granted and always be thinking critically. And I'd like to just thank the whole staff, past and present, for making this place what it is, which is a truly fun and energizing place to work. So I'll always be rooting for the Watershed District. I'll always be periodically texting James to see what's going on. And really, truly, I'll miss this place from the bottom of my heart. So thank you.
Thanks, Anna. Now I know why you wanted to go first. That's impossible to top. And I put together some notes, if the board will humor me, in a few slides, notes so that I can kind of stay focused and not break down. So I'm going to ask you to slide over just a little bit. I can't speak as eloquently off the cuff as Anna, and that's one of her key attributes. First, okay, we're figuring out it's yet another transition for us in terms of how we manage meetings. I don't know if I'm going to be able to do this. Not technologically. I'm just
Looks like
making-
an eye test there.
There we go.
I can read it, GB, SAT.
2020.
What's an eye test?
GB.
Oh yeah, we have a guest monitoring, so maybe they're here to say goodbye to Anna for all of her great work at 6 Mile. I just wanted to start by stating the obvious, which is, you know, tonight's really bittersweet as we make space to recognize amazing contributions that Anna Brown has had in both the watershed and on the organization and all of the people in it. While also saying goodbye, hopefully, just at least for now, we keep making the pitch for a consulting role. And just wishing her and her family the very best as they relocate to Portland. So I'm going to take a few minutes to walk through and recap for folks. Some of you have been around and seen all of this and all the accomplishments, and for others it's a little bit of a story of Anna's journey and what I see as highlights in her time with the Watershed District, and then maybe we can take Chair Olson a few moments just to hear from the board and any other staff members if they've got words that they want to share. And Mike is absent tonight. Unfortunately, he had a death in the family, but he sent along a few words that he's asked me to read as well, because I know he's really upset that he couldn't be here. But how do I make this go? There we go. Oops. So Anna joined us straight out of grad school. Like she said, that's why it's been her most rewarding professional experience. And she impressed us a lot during the interview with the best proposal on how we could meet the challenge of replicating what we thought was next level success in the Greenway in 6 Mile Creek, Halstead Bay. And that was the entire interview revolved around how are you going to take what we did here and apply it out in Carver County. And out of all of our candidates, Anna just had a terrific proposal that was really clear and well thought through. Mike and I thought, well, if she could do 10% of that, you know, we probably have a pretty good shot of being successful. And she jumped in immediately and got stuck in on master planning, taking what we had was just reams of data for the watershed, like landscape loading. You can imagine over the 14 lakes out here and 27 square miles, and looking at all this, it looks kind of messy. And looking at the internal loading in the lakes, and her favorite thing to contemplate, the carp populations and density, and somehow was able to boil that down and organize it into just a really clear, simple, and elegant strategy broken down into manageable units that we felt like we could actually implement. And that's the work that's guided us since then to systematically work through both improvements on the landscape, managing common carp, and then alum dosing to improve water quality, beginning at the headwaters of 6 Mile Creek all the way down to Halstead Bay. And like I said, we probably would have been satisfied with that because we were stuck and challenged to organize all of that into a coherent strategy. But she went further, and as we know, and it's one of the principles that we'll talk about later tonight, even the most well thought out strategy isn't very useful to the Watershed District without partners. And Anna did partnership building in spades, bringing together the ones that you see on the screen. We had townships, both counties, Three Rivers Park District, the city of Victoria, the city of Minnehaha, city of St. Bonifacius. And like she just did, she spoke deftly and eloquently like a pro, convening all of those partners and doing a lot of planning. This is a picture from City Hall where we were bringing people together and layering together all the different opportunities and potential to build consensus, awareness, and understanding around the needs for the area, why we needed to be there, why we should be invited in, why we were a critical partner, to really cement our invitation in as partners with all of those agencies. And then ultimately creating unanimous support for the 6 Mile Creek Halstead Bay plan, which made its way into our comprehensive plan, at times caused us some stress, because we were writing that in parallel with the comprehensive plan and trying to dovetail both of those, I think, while Becky took maternity leave. and it came out famously, and we had unanimous support for the projects and the programs that were in there. And from there, I think we would have been content too. We had a lot of friends that were supporting us, but you took that to the next level, and all the planning and partnership momentum, and obtained legislative funding for one of the largest carp management programs in the state of Minnesota to restore almost 3,000 acres of in-lake habitat and improve water quality across the whole chain. Also pulled in multiple state grants, over $500,000 in grant funding to address internal loading through alum dosing of some of the ponds and directly to Wasserman Lake, bringing a systems focus to the headwaters. And that was made made possible in part by a concept to acquire and restore what at the time was the last available open space on Wasserman Lake. And I remember driving, up and down as we navigated 6 Mile, and this is just a picture that I grabbed from my phone of the for sale sign and all the conversations that we had about the potential for Wasserman Preserve that would allow us to treat loading from a nearby pond before it went into the lake, and also deliver on one of the city's comprehensive plan goals of a waterfront park. And I put this in there because these sketches are early and very crude, but this is the stage where the idea was really just a twinkle in the eye that we were talking about internally and talking to our technical advisory committee about and talking to the city about. And so from a for sale sign to connecting all those dots to turning that into true art with the concept plan, which Anna took through visioning and planning, to obtain support from the city of Victoria to both acquire the property and hold it, with them agreeing to later reimburse us for all the land and fund the park improvements, as we know, was no small feat and took many years, and I think lesser people may have given up. The project hit a number of different roadblocks and just took a lot of grit and determination and perseverance to see through. And that was one of your first construction management projects, walking that past concept, past acquisition, past concept planning, past negotiating the agreements, and then working through all the construction. It was just really a fun thing to watch and very impressive. And ultimately delivered one of the most epic balanced urban ecology spaces that we have in the watershed, and planted a flag in 6 Mile Creek and the city of Victoria with the Wasserman Preserve, ecologically based park. And as we know, I think we've all been out there, it's just a tremendous resource and asset that provides public access to a restored Wasserman Lake with a shelter and a picnic area, nature play, which today helps bridge nature deficit and get kids to be out in nature, interacting and creative with nature. There's a fire ring for community gatherings, including our community. This is a picture of a staff gathering that we had on one of our fall field trips. The interpretive loop and watershed walk that puts 6 Mile and Wasserman Preserve in context as a place within the broader watershed, and of course the boardwalk that connects people to the lake and actually provides lake access. Beyond all that great planning, partnership building, and seeing it through, and implementation and construction, one of the things that another principle is we want to measure the results and hold ourselves accountable. And the best part about the story, other than Anna herself, is the work that you've done has actually worked. And these are just some of the metrics that you've helped us accomplish. And so we've transformed the landscape, and we've gotten now to a point in 2022 where Wasserman Lake, here shown in the data, is almost meeting state standards, having gone from 90 micrograms per liter to just above 40, showing the projects that Anna's been able to drive and implement over time and the lasting impact that you've had. And of course, at the center of all the work is Anna, an amazing person that's brought the community together to celebrate nature and to celebrate the watershed and to support and celebrate Minnehaha Creek Watershed District. And a person that's had just a profound impact on our entire staff team. Her growth mindset, her humor, her persistence, her never-ending smile, her ability to find joy in the face of adversity, whether it's at work or at home, has just been an example that she's set for how to live life to the fullest, and not just how to approach work. And we've watched as Anna's demonstrated vulnerability. As she tried to, this is a picture of her trying to find her way on drafting the 6 Mile Plan. But we've been right alongside her the whole time to celebrate as she joyously here prevented a potential carp migration. You can see how excited she was about that. We helped her fulfill a lifelong goal that she put on the table in week 1 of being on Minnesota Public Radio, and this is after she got the call that she was going to go be on the radio. As she mentioned, we weathered some difficult times together, a pandemic, and we also watched her bring, in more ways than one, new life to the office. And sharp-dressed people there. We also made lifelong friends. I know Mike really wishes he could be here to say goodbye tonight, but it's been really fun to build friendship along the way. So I think everybody knows I could say more, but I will finish simply by saying that working alongside Anna has been one of the most profound experiences in my career. It's really been an honor and a pleasure to have been able to follow your lead, truly, and I'm really grateful that our paths crossed and I was able to make a lifelong friend. So before we hear from others, I just wanted to express my deepest gratitude to Anna and wish her, Brian, Hartley, and Delilah absolutely the best in life. So thank you for everything, Anna.
I'll be right back.
Are we going to say a few words, Bill, or are you
He's gotta get a
grabbing a
script.
Kleenex?
He's got to get a script.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
You can tell we didn't do a dress rehearsal.
Well, the slides told the story about this park, and I remember the day that we dedicated the park, and we had all the county commissioners and everybody in the city and a cast of so many people. And I walked up to Anna and I said, "Is this the part of the project?" I don't know if you've ever seen those, 10 steps in a successful project, and the last part is this where the uninvolved get all the credit? And she and her husband were standing there, and she says, "Well, if that means it's a success, then that's probably what's going to happen." And I said, "Well, we're going to give you the microphone first." So that slide you saw with her talking, she did kick it off. And there wasn't anybody out there who didn't know her role. And as a result of that, when we spoke to the city and let them know that Anna was moving on, they wrote a letter, which I'm going to give to Anna tonight, and it reads as follows. "Dear Anna, on behalf of the City of Victoria and our team, we would like to express our appreciation for your efforts in the city over the past years. Because of you, our community has been able to bring a one-of-a-kind park experience to our residents and the region through the development of Wasserman Lake Preserve. Through storytelling and utilizing the surrounding natural amenities, Wasserman Lake Preserve immerses visitors into their environment while enhancing the water quality of Wasserman Lake. The alum treatments, the common carp management program, and construction of 2 stormwater ponds turned a degrading body of water into the lake the community can be proud of. We cannot overstate how much the city appreciates your leadership in this project and your assistance in securing grant funds to move the project forward." This is my favorite part. "In addition, because of your efforts, you have bridged a relationship between the city of Victoria and the Minnehaha Creek Watershed District, one that will continue for years to come. We wish you all the best in your future endeavors. Best, Ann Anke, City of Victoria Park and Recreation Director, and Dana Hardy, City of Victoria City Manager. So congratulations.
Thank you.
Comments from the board?
I had just a couple. You were here when I started, and I have always taken a sense of comfort in your professionalism. You have a special presentation style that I am envious of and wish I could repeat myself. But you have skills and abilities of bringing people together and continuing to move forward even when obstacles are flying at you. That has always impressed me, and you're going to leave a big hole behind you. So you will be very, very missed, and I just want to thank you for all of your hard work. You've truly been a professional, and I wish you the best. Pacific Northwest is a beautiful area, and I hope that you find the next best opportunity. And I think you gave a lot of people thanks for the support, but you know, you took the opportunities that were given to you here. You rose to the occasion, and you should be proud of what you've accomplished. So thank you.
I just want to say, Anna, that for the most you want to obtain in your new adventures, be the least you get. So thank you. Just wishing you the very best.
A few words. Victoria was not the easiest place to work, or was it? I wrote, before you start working out there, I kind of wrote it off as we are not going to be able to accomplish anything. There's too many issues out there, and people don't trust us and everything. You changed all that. I mean, it was like turning a pile of asphalt into a soup. I mean, it was really a difficult situation. I went to a couple of council meetings, and I couldn't believe that they would ever do anything with us. It was just like we were such an enemy for what reason I couldn't figure out, but it was kind of a political issue of some sort or another that had nothing to do with us. But as far as, and you changed all that. If the former managers of the city would get fired for sending a letter complimenting the Watershed District, but your work, you always were the most pleasant, the most professional, and the most patient. And I think the park is the most visible evidence of it, but the relationship is what is the most valuable, and it's going to serve us well forever because of your work. And nobody else could have done that, I believe. So thank you very much.
Manager Maxwell?
Anna, thank you very much for your time and your effort and your vision. I think it really has a lot to say about something that can really, to have a vision and finally have it put all together. It's quite an accomplishment. And the team building that you built with all of the other team members and with the rest of the board and the cities and everything else is a great job. Thank you very much.
I'll make one last comment too, since my previous thing was the comments of the city. Manager Loftus mentioned professionalism. The city and the county never once saw anything other than that. And when you ran those meetings, when you were helping them understand what our role could be and why it would be in their best interest, you brought such a charm that people there wanted to work with you. They talked to me, but they wanted to work with you. That was the big thing that I kept watching. They're complimenting you behind your back, the trust that they had, the credibility you brought. Even to the point where when they made a bad decision, you accommodated that. When they came back at the end of the project and said, you know that other idea you had, we want to incorporate that really dramatically, and can you do that? You said, yes, we'd love to do that. And you never let them know that there was probably more money spent correcting something that they should have done in the first place. And so your ability to deal with people is remarkable. And I just would love to be one of those people out in Oregon that gets to work with you in the future.
I got one observation. This is the first time we've had a big project where we didn't put the money in. I mean, you are a salesperson, I tell you. We're always welcome as long as we bring a lot of money along, but you got the project done and they paid for it. It's just unbelievable. So, you should be really proud of that alone.
James.
I have some comments here from Mike, and then I know Tiffany had asked to say a few words too, if we have time. So Mike had sent along his notes, and I'm just going to read them in my best Mike Heyman voice. Mike said, I wish I could be present at this evening's board meeting to celebrate one of the most influential people I've ever had the opportunity to work with in my career. The impact Anna Brown has had on the organization and landscape speaks for itself, an indelible impact on the environment and the culture of Minnehaha Creek, as I'm sure many of you will highlight with your reflections and comments tonight. She should be recognized for every one of those amazing accomplishments and know that she has literally transformed the landscape and region, impacting countless people along the way. My hope this evening is to communicate what an amazing human Anna is. She has had an impact on me as a person and a professional that I could never have imagined when she joined the MCWD nearly 8 years ago. For me, as many of us, Anna has been much more than a colleague. She's family. Through her infinite kindness, grace, humility, and humor, Anna has selflessly given to each of us as people, wanting nothing more than for every person she touched to experience life in a glowing light. And what most will never realize is that all the while, and most often calmly, stoically, and adorned with a smile, she was enduring life experiences most people can't fathom. Anna showed me what it means to shed ego, live in the present, and transfer pain and hardship into joy and happiness. I know I will miss Anna as a mentor and colleague every day, but I've gained a lifelong friend that even a move across the country can't diminish. And then he listed a series of what I think are inside jokes. Thank you, Anna Rose, for being the epitome of YOLO, you only live once, for bringing your, quote, bad ideas to work every day, for the eggs, kimchi, gorecore, normcore, and deer and bones, for bringing Mr. Potato, spray dredging, carp cannons, hand grenades, baubles or bobbers, Nolans or bust attitude through the door each and every day. Your presence has made all of us better, and I, for one, will never be able to thank you enough for what you've done for me. Wishing you, Brian, Hartley, and Delilah nothing but the best in all of life's endeavors. I think, Tiffany, you need to say a few words?
All right, my dear. So on behalf of staff, I just want to share some reflections about you. First and foremost, you're a part of the fabric that is the Minnehaha Creek Watershed District. Okay. You've left an imprint on the landscape and with those that you've worked with. You immediately embodied the district ethos of leadership at all levels. While you were out trudging a path for the district to be successful in the 6 Mile Creek, Halstead Bay sub-watershed, you were also mentoring and challenging your colleagues to grow. And you did it all with such calm and grace that you made it seem effortless, which could be confusing at times. Because while you were out forging new partnerships and leading the district, you would often share amusing stories about how you lost your wallet, or keys, or phone, which of course always induced laughter around the cubes. Among many things, we're certainly going to miss your witty humor and hearing your laugh around the office. With grateful hearts, we thank you for your leadership, support, grace, and guidance over the past 7.5 years. It's truly been a privilege to work alongside you and become your friend. We wish you all the best, and most importantly, YOLO.
Thank you, everyone. Now I'm extra weepy.
Any final comments? I think we have one more gift and a card, Anna, that we want. So we just love the concept drawing so much.
Oh.
We turned it into art.
Sure, read the-
Something else to move.
I don't Thanks, Anna.
Thank you, Anna.
Here you go. After. Thanks.
Okay.
We ready to move on?
Okay.
There's Kleenexes up front.
We can do that. Okay, next on the agenda is approval of the consent agenda.
Move approval.
Second.
Miller as one, agenda 2, where we will have items 23001, 23002 through 23005. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
We'll do a voice. Maxwell?
Aye.
Miller?
Aye.
Sando?
Aye.
Loftus?
Aye.
And Olson says aye. On the regular agenda, we have board and committee task force reports. We will not be hearing a report from President White, but we will ask Manager Loftus to let us know about the committee meeting that will be rescheduled to the end of the month.
Yes, thank you. Not much to report other than there wasn't a committee meeting tonight. The agenda item has been moved to January 26th, and we'll report at that time.
Okay. The,
When is the CAC? I'm supposed to go November 9th. It says here on the agenda.
That
When
is-
When is the meeting?
that is the 17th is Metro Mod.
Next
CAC
Wednesday.
is when?
Okay,
Next Wednesday, 18th?
Yes. You can come in November as well.
okay. It's January 18th.
2023.
Okay.
And I didn't catch that. All right. And also, Metro Mod is next Tuesday night, and Manager Hijmati is our representative. It is a virtual meeting that we will be phoning in with a couple of members in attendance. All right, there are no public hearings. There are no permits or discussions on variances. We'll go to our action items. The first one, I'm going to do a couple of things here. First of all, in terms of committee assignments, President White has contacted all of the board managers, and everyone has agreed that they will stay in the current committees that we are serving on right now, so there will be no changes there. The second thing is that we have the election tonight of board officers and appointment of the committee assignments, which is going to be the same based on the results of her survey. First of all, I would like to nominate President White to continue on in her role as president of the Watershed Board.
Second.
Second by Miller. Any other nominations for president? All right, let's vote then on that Manager Maxwell,
Aye.
Manager Miller,
Aye.
Manager Sando,
Aye.
Manager Loftus,
Aye.
Manager Olson says aye. Motion carries. Next, we have other officers. Any nominations?
I'll nominate Mr. Olson to be vice president.
Second.
Any other nominations? All right, we'll go to a vote. Manager Maxwell.
Aye.
Miller.
Aye.
Sando.
Aye.
Loftus.
Aye.
Olson. Aye. Okay, next we have secretary and treasurer.
They're separate.
They're separate, so we'll go with treasurer. I nominate Manager Loftus to be our treasurer.
Second.
Any other nominations? All right, we will vote. Manager Maxwell.
Aye.
Manager Miller.
Aye.
Manager Sando.
Aye.
Manager Loftus.
Aye.
Manager Olson says aye. And for secretary, do we have a nomination?
Who's the secretary?
Jean.
No, I'm not secretary.
Gene,
Who's the secretary?
Gene Maxwell.
Manager Maxwell.
Oh, I move Maxwell.
All right, I'll second that. Manager, for voting for secretary, Manager Maxwell.
Aye.
Miller.
Aye.
Sando.
Aye.
Loftus.
Aye.
Olson says aye. We have our new officers. Next up is action item 11.2, resolution 23006, acceptance of the CAC diagnostic findings. Samantha Mall.
Okay. Wait a second, let me get tech ready. All right. Well, good evening, managers. Tonight I will be sharing the findings of the CAC diagnostic that was conducted in the fall of 2022. I'm going to start by providing some background on the 2021 CAC alignment and then give an overview of the purpose, process, and goals of the diagnostic check. Then I will share findings from the data we've collected and how these insights can inform future operations of the CAC with a few recommendations. Before we get into the weeds a bit more, I just want to preface by stating that throughout this process, we heard that the board, CAC members, and staff are comfortable with the current operating model. Staff are not suggesting any major shifts, but after 1 year with this operating model under our belts, we've identified some potential areas for improvement and refinement, which will carry us forward into the second year. All right. Just some background here. As you know, in June of 2021, the Board of Managers adopted operational recommendations to align the CAC with the strategic direction of the organization and maximize the value proposition of the CAC, which is described as providing fresh and diverse perspectives that improve how the organization communicates and thinks about its key work. These recommendations sought to align the CAC with the strategic direction of the organization, and the recommendations touched on each of the categories listed on the screen here. But some of the particular areas of change are adjusting the scope of work to vetting and stress testing the strategy and communications of our key initiatives, moving to bi-monthly meetings with content that's planned every 6 months. And then there are a suite of other operational changes which included several related to membership and recruitment, which you may remember from when I came back before you in November and December to prepare for the appointment of the 2023 CAC. Now, the alignment report also suggested that we include a diagnostic check-in in November 2022 after about a year-long trial period. And that is just to assess how the changes are going and identify any opportunities for further refinement. So, the main goals of the diagnostic were to assess the efficacy of the operational changes that were implemented in 2021 and identify any areas for potential improvement or alignment with MCW's mission and strategy. As far as the process goes, we took a 360-degree approach by involving staff, the CAC, and the board. We used 3 different methods of data collection so that we could get a really holistic understanding of the perspectives from each of our stakeholders. So some of the key methods for data collection then were an online survey in which we used a Likert scale and open-ended questions, and we had 21 participants. Including 4 board members, 9 CAC members, and 8 staff members. We also conducted 4 one-on-one interviews, which were optional, to add a little bit more richness to the survey data.
These interviews were conducted with 2 CAC members and 2 staff members. Next, we had a group discussion of the preliminary findings of the survey and interviews at the November 9th, 2022 CAC meeting. And we had 12 CAC members in attendance, 1 board liaison, Manager Hashmati, and 3 staff members that participated. I'd also like to note that we did answer a few questions and lingered on some of the early concerns during our November committee discussion of CAC recruitment and appointment, since we did have a few more tenured members cycling off for the CAC for various reasons. So nextly, I'll touch on all of the key findings and present the accompanying recommendations, which we hope to implement throughout 2023, the second year of this operating model. Firstly, there was a consensus of support across the board, staff, and CAC for the selected model of using the CAC as a focus group to vet and brainstorm the strategy and communication of our key initiatives. Involvement in planning for the Lake Nokomis groundwater and surface water evaluation town hall was identified as a prime example of how valuable CAC engagement can be with this new operating model. And that was suggested by over half of the respondents in the online survey. We also heard that 95% of CAC members feel adequately prepared to engage in meetings with the current level of pre-read materials, and that includes a memo for our discussion and action items, an agenda, and then the minutes from the previous meeting. Of course, like anything else, we did identify a few areas for operational improvement, so I'll be going through those next with findings 2 through 5. So our primary recommendation around this first finding is to continue focusing the CAC's work on vetting the strategic direction and communications of our key initiatives, but we'll also be implementing a few additional steps to ensure ongoing capacity building of the CAC. We'll place some emphasis on balancing focus group discussions with regular updates on the status and development of our key initiatives, and utilize ongoing opportunities for education with the CAC. This will ensure CAC members continue to feel prepared to engage with and contribute to our initiatives. The second key finding was that CAC members support the flexibility to scale up beyond 6 meetings annually whenever it's needed. About a quarter of respondents expressed some concern with the bi-monthly schedule, noting that 6 meetings may be too few to cover the wide breadth of topics that we're working on. But this was also something that we heard leading up to alignment in juxtaposition with the previous monthly schedule. We do have the flexibility to schedule ad hoc meetings as needed for timely initiatives and supplement meetings with on-site events and formal offline engagement or updates on major initiatives. So, in 2023, the second year under this cadence, we're optimistic that improved content planning and utilization of ad hoc meetings and on-site events will increase comfort with the bi-monthly meeting schedule. Our key recommendation here is that outreach consider complementing in-meeting content with written updates and communications to the CAC to maintain broad situational awareness and engagement in MCWD's work. We will continue to integrate on-site visits and events when applicable and maintain the flexibility to add meetings to the calendar whenever it's needed. Third key finding was that staff and some CAC members recommend an ongoing emphasis by outreach on optimizing content planning. Staff in the CAC had overlapping recommendations to improve content planning by having outreach staff regularly scan opportunity topics with program managers and integrate the CAC engagement into the life cycle of our projects and initiatives. CAC members also suggested prioritizing education and capacity building in meeting content, especially when we have new cohorts of CAC members joining the group. And then we also heard that CAC members appreciate meetings where they have clear expectations for inputs and outputs. Our primary recommendation here is that outreach develop a tentative content calendar at the beginning of each year to guide CAC meeting planning. However, the content focus for individual meetings will remain adaptable, and outreach will work with staff and board members to prepare effectively. This content calendar will be managed by outreach with feedback from the program managers, and we'll coordinate with the CAC executive team to make sure that they're tracking month to month. For each meeting, outreach will work with the staff lead to outline clear expectations for desired outcomes, identify how CAC members will be engaged in discussion topics, and how CAC feedback will be leveraged so that follow-up communications on the status of key initiatives can be distributed to the CAC. Fourthly, here we have continuous improvement of our recruitment and appointment cycles. And the main focus here is to maintain a balance between the continuity of more tenured members and the addition of diverse, new, and fresh perspectives. Several respondents identified opportunities to expand the circulation of the CAC application and the consideration of implementing term limits. This would help balance that continuity and addition of new perspectives. In the last recruitment cycle, we did have a strong applicant pool, and we had 4 candidates that were appointed for 2023. So they'll be joining us next week. We're excited to welcome them. But we'll continue to work towards more diversity, especially in our geography. And our upcoming DEI planning process will also help establish a data-driven approach for demographic diversity and recruitment in a few different areas. So the recommendation here is that outreach staff and MCWD leadership continue to refine and improve the CAC recruitment process to ensure appropriate balance is maintained between continuity and fresh, diverse perspectives that draw from a variety of geographic, professional, and personal backgrounds. As requested by the board, I'll note also that Outreach now maintains a contact list of CAC applicants who are not appointed, and also alumni who have expressed interest in staying up to date on our work. So this can help the organization expand its network and allow MCWD to leverage connections to alums and applicants by involving them in events and regularly communicating with them about our key initiatives. All right, and then my fifth and final key finding here is that CAC members encouraged exploration of ongoing improvements to the flow of information and engagement between the CAC and the Board of Managers. 95% of respondents for the online survey indicated agreement with the current model of one rotating board liaison at each meeting, but some CAC members also suggested that we consider a standing board liaison to offer a little bit more continuity in board and CAC engagement meeting over meeting. The recommendation here is that Outreach continue to work with program staff and the Board of Managers to identify opportunities to both continue designing engaging CAC meetings and to maintain and improve the flow of information between the board and the CAC. Outreach will work in advance of CAC meetings with program staff and the board liaison to gather useful and timely updates that can be captured in the board and staff briefings at the end of each CAC meeting. And this can facilitate a short question and answer period so CAC members can reflect on some of our progress on key initiatives. So finally, we recommend that we continue monitoring and evaluating CAC operations and engagement and make any necessary adjustments that support continuous improvement to effectively leverage the value of the CAC to support our mission and strategic priorities. Although the diagnostic will be closed if you accept this summary report with Resolution 23-006, it is the spirit and culture of this organization to continue evaluating and looking for opportunities for improvement. We've learned quite a bit over the past year, and we'll continue to learn and identify methods to make CAC engagement more effective and valuable to MCWD's work in 2023 and in the years beyond. So, speaking of 2023, here I have the tentative meeting calendar with the topics for each meeting. We're going to be focusing on some major initiatives like the Land and Water Partnership Program and permitting rule revisions, our capital projects, the DEI planning progress, climate planning work as it shakes out in the later part of the year. You'll notice that in April we are also planning an off-site field trip as a capstone to our onboarding program for new members. This event will be open to staff, board members, CAC alumni, and perhaps even some of those interested applicants from the past cycle if they're available. Outreach will consider a communication tool, perhaps like a CAC newsletter, and plan to share these with the CAC interest email list that includes alums like Peter Reckelbacher, John Salden, and Bill Bushnell, as well as the applicants from the past recruitment cycle. As I briefly touched on, I'll be sitting in on regular program manager meetings to scan for additional CAC engagement opportunities and capture updates that will be useful for sharing with the CAC, either through the newsletter or in formalized staff and board updates during CAC meetings. Overall, we're excited to kick off the new year with our first meeting next week, where we'll be welcoming new and returning members with a meal prior to the meeting at 6 p.m. New members will also have 2 additional onboarding sessions in February and March before we get together for that field trip in April. The executive team will be involved throughout that onboarding process and help support and mentor our new members so they feel confident and comfortable. We're looking forward to the year ahead, and we'll implement the recommendations shared tonight if you accept the summary report with the resolution before you. At this point, I'll take any questions and that's my conclusion.
Well, before we do any questions, I would like to seek a motion for Resolution 2306, acceptance of the CAC diagnostic findings.
So move.
Moved by Manager Miller,
Second.
Manager Loftus, second. All those in favor, Manager Maxwell,
Aye.
Manager Miller,
Aye.
Manager Sandu,
Aye.
Loftus.
Aye.
Olson says aye. Motion approved.
Can I just thank the staff and James for all the effort that went into this? I remember a couple years ago when the CAC reported to us that they didn't feel some of the things they were hoping for, connection, and you guys listened and dug deep and tried to figure out new and better ways to look at a committee. So I appreciate all that you've done and put into it. And I hope the CAC knows how much we value them and value their time. And I think this kind of review is very much within the watershed district of how you go about analyzing things. So I appreciate the work and the fresh look at how we can always be looking for areas to improve. And it was good exercise. Thank you.
Thank you, Manager Loftus.
Motion's approved. Thank you.
Excellent. All right. Thank you.
Mr. President,
Yes,
Mr. President,
go ahead.
this is Lewis. I want to, if I can, go back to the previous item with the election of officers and the committee appointments. We did have board action on electing officers, but under our bylaws and governance policies, it's the board that confirms the appointments that are nominated by the president. And so a simple motion would be in order to confirm President White's appointments to reappoint the same committee assignments as last year.
Okay, so right now we're only dealing with intent, not confirmation.
No,
We have to vote.
we have to
We have to vote.
move approval of the president's recommendation for committees.
We have a motion from Manager Miller and a second from Manager Sando. All right, so we will vote now on accepting those committees. Maxwell,
Aye.
Manager Miller,
Aye.
Sando,
Aye.
Loftus,
Aye.
and Olson says aye.
Thank you.
You're welcome, thank you. Next is Resolution Resolution 23007. Action item 11.3, acceptance of the MCWD's historical insights and principles of success. Mr. Whisker.
Yes, thank you, Chair Olson and managers. Very pleased to be here tonight asking for the board to accept the district's draft of its historic insights and principles of success that you've all collectively worked on and the staff's worked on and CAC has worked on over the last year. And we'll be seeking acceptance through Resolution 23007. So the purpose of the project when we conceived of it is really to live into our learning culture. Samantha just talked about our culture of continuous improvement by exploring our history and digging deep through our history to map key events and decisions that were made over time by previous generations dating all the way back to our inception to understand the impact of those decisions and then ultimately derive learnings from our 50-plus years of history and turn those learnings, extract those learnings into principles that can guide both this team and future generations of the district's board, staff, and Citizens Advisory Committee. In terms of organizational context for the work, when we began this, the board acknowledged that we were really in the midpoint of our 10-year planning cycle, and we were 5 years in from our effort to strategically realign. And so the board was thinking about 2023 at the time. We started this early 2022, to be prepared to start thinking about the future. And that's something that we're going to begin brainstorming around at our January committee meeting. And to prepare to do that and move into our next strategic cycle, our next window of climbing for excellence towards our 2027 plan, the board decided that it would first comprehensively map the past and also take stock of its current situation, something that we've done through some committee dialogues and through the actually a 2021 board retreat. And that was all there to build a solid and shared foundation for how we might move forward together and to document our principles of success that we want to take with us. And so the project purpose to extract these essential learnings that organizations built over time, we worked closely with Lewis Smith, who did the lion's share of work on this project, digging deep through our archives of minutes, agendas, project information, studies, and occasionally past litigation history, breaking down our chapters of history into discrete eras of activity, each with a defined theme. And those were then framed into 5 white papers that within each began mapping the preliminary lessons from each chapter of our history. And you can see here just an excerpt from the document that's in your packet. This is chapter 1, 1967 to 79, which was our formation and what we framed as our initial mandate coming out of the petition for our formation. And then moving into 1980 and 1992, where we really entered an era of science-based or data-driven project planning. And then the 90s, where we took that planning and we put it on high-octane fuel. Really an acceleration of planning and project building in those 6 years, most notably with the Chain of Lakes partnership in Minneapolis. 2009 was really themed out with a strong regulatory approach and program expansion, with each program sort of developing its own enterprise. And then our most recent chapters brought things back into focus on partnership with the land use community. And so after completing all of the 5 white papers, the lessons learned from each were then compiled and drafted into principles, which the board, CAC, and staff have discussed. And inside the document, those are summarized right up front into a 1-pager into 7 categorical areas with the corollary sub-principles. And this is just, for illustration. We'll step through them here in a moment at a top level. But the 7 categories cover everything from our origins and identity, where we came from, what's central to our DNA as an organization, and how that shows up today. The importance of vision and focus in producing results of excellence. Always working from data and sound science, which has been there from the very beginning as we took a data-driven approach to developing Grays Bay Dam and its operating plan. The need to be judicious when working only from a place of authority. We've had our authority tested a number of times and drawn a firm line and held it. And we've also made some decisions based solely on authority that ended up providing some lonely consequences long-term and ripple effects for the organization. And the flip side of that is the vital importance of partnership, and finally the people, the board, staff, and CAC, and how people underpin the success or struggles of the organization. Then at the end of the document, after each of the white papers, each category of principle receives an entire page of detailed write-up. And this is really where we have the rich exposition living to inform and guide the reader on where the principles came from and what they really mean. And this is the flavor and insight into why each one became a truism for the organization. And from the beginning, one of the things that the board's been interested in is how this can serve future generations or serve posterity as we onboard new board members, new CAC, and new staff. And so this provides a lot of that grounding in addition to just the chronicling of history and the wins and trials that we've been through. This really explains these fundamental rules that have guided our success. So now I'm going to step through these briefly, knowing that the board's seen these a few times and discussed them in depth before. Our first one is know where you came from and what is central to your identity. And this principle leaves breadcrumbs really again for the next generation regarding our origin and what is in our organizational DNA, which includes flood mitigation. That's why we were petitioned into existence. And we've talked a lot about that lately after 7 of the wettest years on record, and the need to take a new and more robust approach to volume management across the watershed as we look towards climate action and our 2027 plan. And part of our identity around flood mitigation was the creation of Grays Bay Dam. And we know over all of our years of history that Grays Bay Dam has always and will always generate upstream and downstream dialogue. It's a literal centerpiece of conversation across the standing and running water portions of the watershed. And that finally, balanced urban ecology is the heart of this organization's approach to watershed management, with focus, integration, and partnership with our member communities that make many decisions around how the landscape's actually used. Our second principle is devoting time and effort to vision and focused execution produces results. I could probably just show you the presentation that we just gave on 6 Mile as the poster child for vision and focus. But this bolds and underscores what's made us successful over the years. We've had great visionary leadership from the board, and that's created tremendous energy through the organization and really been gas that's been poured into our tank. But also we've learned that fanning out and the expansion of our programming has had a diffuse effect on our impact, and so that a principle we're carrying with us moving forward is a big part of our success has come from a narrowing of our focus on very clear priorities. Right now, projects, high impact projects, and shaping policy. And that bold, creative, flexible, and integrated thinking that comes outside of the world of just water and watershed business, but in areas of transportation, parks and open space, community development, has really driven our success. And that boldness needs to be tempered by an accurate accounting of the risk side of the bold visions and being thoughtful and prudent as we move forward. And finally, we talked about this earlier too, holding ourselves accountable, verifying that the desired results are being achieved, and making sure that if we do make mistakes, which we're bound to because we're pursuing wildly audacious goals, that we're learning from them, documenting them, and again, that's kind of the point of this exercise. Number 3 traces back to our earliest days. I mentioned this already. It's just about relying on sound science to make credible results-based decisions, and that when we do that, we invest in the trust capital that has been built with all of our partners. That our value is delivered by a deep understanding of the system and acting in ways that practically solve problems. And that when we do that consistently, we build the trust with our partners. And that's going to require us in the future to maintain that deep understanding of our system as weather patterns change in order to preserve credibility. And I think a terrific working example, contemporary example from this year is the Nokomis Surface and Groundwater Study, where we really brought science to a complex issue and boosted our credibility, made results-based decisions, and built trust with the community and community leaders. Number 4 is familiar to us and hopefully to our partners, is that partnerships are the difference-making ingredient in our ongoing upward trajectory. Science is essential. We need to operate from sound science, but without partners, all we have is knowledge. We don't really have action. And we need to work with people that control the land. That's really critical. And balanced urban ecology is really the key that unlocks that door. But building partnerships requires a couple of things: clear messaging and stories. The CAC commented here that in addition to the engagement strategically at multiple levels with leadership, with staff, with community, that communications and really clear, effective storytelling makes a difference. I think that was referenced actually in the letter that we received about our work in 6 Mile from the city manager of Victoria. But while partnerships are essential, they're also often challenging, difficult, time-consuming. They require a decent amount of patience and persistence. So partnership isn't really anything, it isn't something that we say, it's something that we do. It's an action. It's a process and not a posture that we take or a branding exercise. And Principle 5 is the flip side of that coin. As a watershed, and in particular Minnehaha Creek Watershed District, we're vested with a significant amount of authority, and that's very important, but we must act thoughtfully and judiciously in using it. Sometimes we have to draw a line and hold it, even when that's unpopular, and we've had many examples where we've had to do that are outlined in the white paper. But also, sometimes we've acted on authority only, and we've done that alone. And when we've done that, when we haven't needed to, it's had lasting consequences for our ability to work with others. So balance, just like balanced urban ecology, is essential, because when we have the right balance and we sort of pick the right fights, the district can be perceived as both a partner and a regulator. And our final principles are really all about our people-first approach. And number 6 underpins the significance of you all, our board of managers. We don't have a rubber stamp board, and to my knowledge, never have. The board sets the direction, the bar, and the tone for the whole organization, and leadership, excellence, and accountability flow from the board and the decisions that you're making. And at the same time, while we have a board of managers, and those managers do have the authority and have opted to, in the past, delve into and address operations, that the board, and this board in particular, has excelled when they choose to govern from a policy level and think strategically and steer the ship and guide direction and provide vision. So, in order to do that and to be successful long term, we have to have a very strong marriage and a high degree of trust between both the board and staff for that balance to be maintained. And then finally, driving home again the other side of the team and the importance of people. We're acknowledging that success is driven by people, so we need to get the people and our culture right. And to do this, at a staff level, we're putting a premium on hiring and continuously investing in our team, as well as being critical in sorting and evaluating how we're doing and holding each other accountable. Part of this is a recognition that a healthy culture or any relationship in any team is rooted in trust, and that trust comes from transparency. And the way that we think about that is transparency means everybody has access to all but the most sensitive of information, so that they can innovate, think critically, make connections between pieces of information, connecting the dots, ideas, and people, making connections outside of programs, outside of hierarchy, to innovate and advance ideas, and doing that in a way that those ideas have been stress tested by other credible people across the organization, outside of their silos. So there's your snapshot of the 7 principles that we synthesized out of 50 years worth of work. And like I said, those are the top line take homes. At the end of the principles document, there's each category of principle is afforded a whole page write-up that really provides some of the rich flavoring and texture of where they came from, and some of the subtext and what they really mean and how they can be actionable, as well as some examples. And so I want to thank Lewis Smith, of course, for doing this work. I think he's done just a phenomenal job. This is going to serve us well for a really long time. It not only captures all of our history, it does it in a way where it's not just telling one thing happened and then the next thing happened and then the next thing happened. These are critical formative events in our history that have defined eras of time. They've defined who we are today. And what Lewis has been able to do is pull out timeless lessons that will serve us well in the future. so that as the team evolves and grows and we have new people coming in and new ideas, we can use this as a blueprint and a roadmap of our history to understand what have we already tried, where have we been, what have we learned, and so that we're not repeating the same mistakes as our predecessors, and that we're looping up and standing on the shoulders of those giants and continue to accelerate our upward trajectory. So a huge thanks to Lewis, and a congratulations for him dialing in here from sunny La Jolla, California tonight. Similar thanks to the board. They've really dug into each white paper, asked a lot of critical questions. Hopefully you learned a lot about the history along the way. You helped us refine the principles, lifting out pieces that needed to be elevated and kind of bolded and really brought to the forefront, and asked some critical questions and helped shape those. We did do the same thing with staff. Lewis was kind enough to sit in this room with all staff and give a full top to bottom briefing of the principles, and then we broke into small groups and workshop those as a way to start assimilating those with the new team, but also thinking about how do we make those livable, so that this isn't a document on the shelf, but how are we revisiting those, living those, and then making those part of the onboarding for new cohorts. And similarly, Lewis made the rounds with me to Citizens Advisory Committee, and as usual, they just provided some really great insights around communications, our role in regulation, and of course our area of partnership. So some thank yous there. In terms of next steps, if the board's comfortable accepting the document tonight, rolled into the resolution is there are scattered throughout a few footnotes where it says complete citation. The archives aren't perfect, and so Lewis and I have to go through and make sure that we're finalizing a few loose citations and making sure that we're pointing the super sleuths that read this document towards the right source material in the future. So just kind of an administrative item there. We might tweak with the layout and play with that and punch it up a little bit, so there's an opportunity to make some non-substantive edits. But other than that, really, the resolution's directing me and the staff team to make sure we're integrating this work into the onboarding of any future board members, our new staff and CAC, and figuring out a process for how we hand off these learnings. And then, of course, thinking about a process for periodically revisiting. If we have a major event that's contemporary and we think we've really learned a lot from our recent experience, maybe that'll be a trigger point for opening the document and modifying or penciling in a new principle. So those are the next steps that I'm outlining for you tonight. With that, I'll take any questions that the board has, but otherwise are recommending approval this evening, or acceptance rather, of the document, and that's resolution 23007.
And I will ask for a motion for acceptance of the MCWD's historical insights and principles of success.
Move approval.
Second.
Manager Miller moves, Manager Sando second. Okay. Discussion.
Now, when the board called for a review of the history to make sure that everybody understood what we've been through, I never expected it to be this quality of product. And this is really going to be useful for future board members and for ourselves to remind ourselves what got us where we are now, and how to avoid the mistakes that were made in the past and move on the successes that we had. This is really well done, Lewis, and I know James has a lot of work to do on editing. He had a little different perspective than the legal perspective, which was legal perspective is good to make sure we're on a sound basis, but the policy analysis that James fed into the product is really been well done. I couldn't be more happier. I don't think any other unit of government has done something like this, where it's not only historic, but it's a valuable tool for the board members to review where we are and how we got here and mistakes that were made. Everybody kind of knows about the successes, but everybody kind of forgets about the mistakes. We should have a chapter for the 9 Mile.
6 miles.
6 mile.
It's
whatever.
actually 12
One of
miles. We
those
should
miles-
rename it.
One of those mile deals.
One of those mile deals.
But I couldn't be more pleased. It's just really well done.
I would like to
Understandable.
thank- I'd like to thank James and Lewis as well. And the document was so easy to follow. It helped me for the history. I've only been here 3 years. It was extremely well done and very easy to follow. So James and Lewis, very, very good job.
All right then, let's vote. I'll do a roll call vote. Manager Maxwell.
Aye.
Manager Miller.
Aye.
Manager Sando.
Aye.
Manager Loftus.
Aye.
And Manager Olson, aye as well. Motion carries. Thank you.
Yes, well done.
Thank you. Yeah,
Next
I'm
up-
excited about it because I've been here a while. We get a lot of questions, and I think to some extent it puts in the center, eliminates the need for a lot of the campfire stories, which, you get fragments and bits and pieces. Hopefully this is a full chronicle, and then if there are questions, it's a nice shared platform for everybody to kind of springboard off of. So I appreciate all of the board's help and Lewis's help in getting it to that point.
All right, thank you. Next on the agenda is the board inquiries, issues, and ideas, and I was all set to do one this week.
Well, let's hear what your idea was.
It was to,
Maybe it was an inquiry.
no, it was to put together the budget and equipment needed to do a hybrid meeting in this room. And before I could even ask that request, I'm watching it on the board. So I am blown away by the speed from last Tuesday when I had this idea to tonight. You folks are amazing.
Can I
So-
follow up on that? too?
Yeah.
Before we had this section of our agenda, Manager Miller had an idea about making sure everybody had history and, gathering our historic information, which just came before us and was approved. So, let your family know it's proof of you having good ideas, but it was not
They
part,
won't-
it was
they
not.
won't believe it.
I know, but it was not brought up under this part of the agenda, so.
Next,
I want to ask the treasurer if there was any cost associated with this accommodating our California visitors.
There's a cost to everything, yes.
actually, it was
That was perfectly answered.
astonishingly affordable.
Okay, so it was less than the board approval number, okay.
Yep.
Yeah, this is, and it was one of the things I was going to tackle during my administrator's report, so.
We'll look forward to it. Next on the item is the administrator's report.
I feel like I know what I'm doing. Well, I'll start there. Yes, we're essentially piloting some hybrid meeting technology, and this is really an interim solution. I think that we're going to be learning how this works, both for folks that are dialing in, whether those are board members or members of the public, and how it's working in the room and making some tweaks. The board did approve hybrid technology for 3 of our conference rooms quite a while back. That the shipping container finally arrived like 2 weeks ago after 18 months. All the pieces are in, and so you'll notice back there in the arrowhead and then upstairs we do have fully integrated hybrid technology that's really slick and works like it should. Request a meeting, you show up, you can see people at home, they can see the entire conference room. The board did not bring forward at the time a fully integrated permanent hybrid solution just because of cost and supply chain issues. And so this is an interim. We're going to be trialing this out and seeing how it works. We have a number of board members that do have planned travel in the first quarter. I think President White is going to be missing the January 26th meeting. Manager Maxwell somehow found a way to be in Palm Springs, California for 90 days. So we have a solution for him to be able to track and participate in meetings. And then I know a few others of you are traveling. So we'll keep collecting feedback on how it's going and use that to inform whether or not we make some small tweaks on this system or if we do something more permanent and integrated. Then there's some nuances of open meeting law statutory requirements where anybody that's speaking, whether it's me, the board, or members of the public, need to be visible by everybody. And so we're going to keep thinking about camera placement and how all that works and whether this will serve as long-term. But we were able to do this under the level of board required
keeping you on your
expenditure.
toes as well.
So yes, our first hybrid meeting, we did, a year plus of fully remote. It felt sort of weird and then immediately awesome to be back in person, and now we're sort of somewhere in the middle with a new transition of how we're running the meetings. A couple of other updates. You may be aware, if we've spoken recently or if you've looked at our website, that we have issued a news release, our first one in quite a while, that's packaged the various awards for Watershed of the Year, our Ambassador of Excellence from National Weather Service, and our ACEC Engineering Excellence Award for Arden Park, all of which have a through line of resilience and climate action, with quotes from the DNR Commissioner, the National Weather Service, County Commissioner from District 6 in Hennepin County, Latondras, and Edina Mayor Hovland, to both talk about those awards and announce the launch and release of our climate framework. And so that's out there. We've got some initial pickups from some Strib reporters that we'll be doing interviews with next week. So we'll keep you plugged in and look for that. And then some of our partners are just interested in us packaging some of the content for them to push through newsletters, social media. So I'll be working with some of the commissioners who are interested in that. I know some of our Minneapolis electeds are interested in taking some of the content and using that through their newsletters to their constituents. So we'll get a little bit of reach out of the news release and are excited for it. It's a way for us to turn our communications lights back on, and Samantha and Stacy have been really helpful in doing that, and then reaching back out to the community of media that's tracking our work. Manager Loftus and I spoke earlier today and called an audible on the committee meeting. So thank you for everybody for being nimble and just showing up a little bit late today. We're going to be pushing the brainstorming that we had planned to the second meeting in January. I may next week find time to connect with Manager Loftus, Manager Miller is the other committee chair, because I think we're doing a mild takeover of your committee meeting at the end of the month, and with President White, and then work with Manager Loftus, who's raised her hand and volunteered to maybe help me co-facilitate that brainstorming exercise to kind of put the board in the driver's seat. And so we're going to do that at the last meeting in January, and really it's a coming out of our history, a firm understanding of our current snapshot. We want to provide a lot of space for the board to start thinking about and getting your ideas on the table, understanding what you're thinking about the future, and just map topics and begin the sorting and distillation process. And we hope that will help us generate some really good ideas for a retreat that would be maybe very early Q2 or end of Q1, hopefully when Manager Maxwell decides to return from Palm Springs. So he's planned to return in April. I think we'll time that for maybe first or second week in April. I had a productive meeting recently with the Minneapolis Public Works Leadership, Deputy Director of Public Works Brian Dodds, and Surface Water and Sewer Director Angie Kraft, and Assistant Superintendent of Planning at the Park Board, Michael Schroeder, to discuss, continue discussing how we bring together City of Minneapolis, Minneapolis Park and Rec Board, and the district on water resource planning and clean water and resilience project implementation in the chain of lakes and the parkway, essentially rebooting Clean Water Partnership from the 90s, maybe Clean Water Partnership 2.0. And so I'll be connecting with our Minneapolis liaisons, that's Manager Hedgemati, President White, Manager Miller, in the coming weeks. But essentially we've, I think, framed how much investment and progress we have made upstream in the 44 square miles of Minnehaha Creek subwatershed since 2007. So accounting for investment, projects, and progress on water quality and the positive impact that is having and the measurable impact that's having on Lake Hiawatha And then we've looked at the last time we were in Minneapolis, where were the investments? They were all on the lakes, not on the creek, for the Chain of Lakes partnership, and assessed the water quality and the current chain of lakes, all of which essentially meet current state standards. That doesn't mean there's not room for investment there, but I think starts to storyboard out why there is a pretty clear imperative for investment in the segment of Minnehaha Creek in Minneapolis to treat regional stormwater and move Lake Hiawatha towards being delisted, which we think is achievable based on the data that we've seen. And the master plan for Minnehaha Creek is really the only master plan that the park board's led for the chain of lakes that has essentially full buy-in from Minneapolis, the city of Minneapolis and the Watershed District, and was captured in our initial memorandum of understanding. So I think on a data-driven basis and partnership basis, it's one of the areas that should receive first attention. As you guys all know, because you've seen the master plan, there's over 30 projects over 30 years, a range or a suite of projects ranging from stream bank improvements to regional stormwater management to floodplain expansion to build resilience. We've boiled those down into 10 that have those triple stacked benefits, and we've boiled that 10 down to 3 areas where we might be interested in focusing that range from relatively simple and discrete and lower cost to more integrated, more complex, higher cost. What I'm starting to see is that for around $3.5 to $4 million between the partners, we could get something like 177 pounds of load reduction and potentially drive Hiawatha off the impaired waters list in conjunction with the park board's plans that are already in place for the Hiawatha Golf Course. And so we framed that and framed how we might do the shared investment and take down those projects over the next 3 to 5 years, and have been discussing the governance process of how we bring electeds and the board, our appointed board members together to talk about that. So I'm
I don't
hopeful
think
that
our timing can be better on that, because there's always this issue about equity in other areas of the city versus the creek area. But that $45 million proposal they got for North Commons kind of equals out the concern about spending money throughout the city and in equitable way. So I haven't seen a better opportunity in the last 15, 20 years for this kind of expenditure in South Minneapolis for the park board.
That's a very good point. I think at some point soon, maybe at a committee meeting, we'll present the storyboard, because I think it's pretty compelling, it's achievable, and I think we have a good scheme pulled together for the relative levels of investment between the 3 partners, and not making it just a one-off, but more of a programmatic activity that the partners could revisit on an annual basis to say, well, what's the 5-year horizon for implementation? So some progress there, and we'll be reporting out on that, and we'll maybe get the full slide deck in front of the board soon. The final thing that I wanted to report on is we have some people transition. So we said thank you and farewell and best wishes to Anna this evening, who's, is your last day tomorrow? Mm-hmm. You picked the Friday the 13th, okay. And Daniel Mock, Michelle has left the Watershed District as of January 4th, and Daniel Mock has his last day on January 20th. Michelle's left for the city of Bloomington, and Daniel is leaving for Washington County. We want to thank them for their time with the district, albeit relatively short, but they've had a great impact in their time here, and we wish them the best as they make the next move. Obviously, that's 75% of Mike's team. He had a 4-person team, and now it's Mike and Gabe. And Gabe will be taking some time coming up here for a relatively extended paternity between mid-February and early April or mid-April. We're confident that based on where 325 is and the great shape that Gabe's leaving us in, that everything's on track there. And so I've been talking to Mike around just early days what the transition plan is. And the slate of work that he has in front of him really is focused on the Southwest LRT stream connection, the Auburn wetland restoration, and County Road 6 pond retrofit. So one in 6 Mile, one right in the heart of the Greenway, and one north of Lake Minnetonka as part of our Long Lake Creek roadmap, which you're going to see at the next meeting, and have already received a preview on. All of that work's pretty tightly geographically focused. It's focused on feasibility or design, and it's already contracted out, and that's kind of Mike's bailiwick. Working through the Greenway as a 2 or 3 person team, and talking to Mike, he's carried more than that volume of contracts in the past and is pretty comfortable he's going to be able to move these forward. And that's essentially our bridge strategy while we think about rebuilding, recruiting, hiring. And very preliminarily, obviously, because some of this is new and it's a relatively dynamic situation, we're thinking about starting the hiring or recruitment process, wanting to make sure Gabe's fully involved in May when he gets back, which times out well with some of this work. In the meantime, I'm going to keep helping Mike in any way I can. The team's ready to rally around him. If some of this work needs to peel off, there are places in the organization it could go, and he could get support from other programs. And then I'll continue running point on our work in the city of Minneapolis, which is more relationship building and front end planning. So while he couldn't be here tonight, he did want to instill confidence in the board that we're going to finish what we started on all the work that's in queue, and really just need to start thinking about the rebuild and recruitment strategy, and want to be upfront about where we are. We don't have everything figured out, and take any questions or concerns or suggestions that the board has today, but we'll keep this a live topic, and as we get more of a concrete plan pulled together, have that in front of the board. I know Manager Hedgemati's asked about this in the past, and he can't really speak tonight, but he had asked previously about outreach, and I've reported on that. I am thinking about this, and so are some of our other team members, about how hiring for backfilling for Mike slots in with other vacancies. We are pursuing filling the operations manager position, something that I hope to get up and posted next week. That would have us having somebody in house, if the hiring process goes well, something like mid-March. We're very comfortable right now as a team in outreach, continue to have those conversations with Stacy and Samantha. We're going to continue giving them space to grow and lead. They're sort of anxious to find out what their ceiling is, but feeling really comfortable about the work that's in front of them. And I think that they're doing a great job. So we're going to kind of leave that as it is and keep monitoring it. Becky is on deck to add I'm losing my words here, add a policy planner this year. And I'm talking to her about how that slots in with other hiring processes, but also threads in between the stakeholder engagement planning work and the technical advisory committee that we're running, and the rule revision process that she's supporting Kayla and the permitting team on, and making sure that we start the hiring process so that we can get somebody on board and start to be onboarded before November, December, when we start dialoguing with our technical advisory committee around climate. We want that person here for our next 4 years of planning on climate, so that has to slot in somewhere. The things that are happening in planning and project management are, some of them are more new to me and Mike, and so we're figuring out, well, with our other hirings, what's going to be the rhythm for this year. I don't think it pays to post all of our vacancies and try and hire 4 to 6 people and onboard them all at the same time. And in some of the one-on-one conversations that I've had with the board, you've mirrored that back out to me in terms of being patient, thoughtful, making sure we maintain the cohesion and of the team that we have, and also knowing that the labor market's fairly dynamic at the moment too. So I'm going to put a premium on putting actually a written plan together that we can get in front of the board, so that you have transparency and feel comfortable about what our hiring strategy is to fill vacancies this year. That concludes my administrative report, Chair Olson, and take any questions around anything that I just covered. And again, if you've got friendly suggestions on the HR side of things, always open to those.
Are we gonna get a litigation report soon on progress?
We are going to get a litigation report soon, Manager Miller. I would expect at the next meeting. They've been toying with a preliminary hearing, and that was originally on the docket for this week, and we were going to be reporting to you this week, but that's been pushed. I don't have the date front of mind. So I would expect at the January 26th meeting, we'll have Mr. Radio here to give a report.
Good, thank you.
Any other comments? The meeting's adjourned. Thank you.